Hi, this is my comprehensive tutorial on how to capture real-world objects with photogrammetry and edit them to look good and be performant to be displayed in a video game or VR setting. Of course, my workflow for this is an ongoing process, and I'm still learning techniques and practices that can improve my models. I'm doing this in a video format because it is a lot of condensed information, and I encourage you to pause and rewind on things that you didn't catch or may have trouble with. I have used many tutorials along the way to learn what I know, and I will be referencing those and putting them in the description for you to go watch, because it's better for you to learn from them than from me, honestly. I'll also be putting timestamps in the description to make it easier to skip a specific step if that's all you need. As you're working, please leave any questions in the comments and I may be able to answer them. And if you have any tips you think other people may find helpful as you're working, please share the knowledge and leave it in the comments as well. Now that that's out of the way, let's get right into it. So, step one is to capture the photos and best practices of doing so. So, there is a technique for capturing photos the best way. So, what you want to do is take between 100 to 200 photos. That is what I found to be the best for the software that I use. This is an example of what it can look like. So if we go here and we look through all of these, I'm basically going around the object, and you want to have them in order and similar to each other. And then as you keep going around in a circle, you're going to go slightly higher and higher. So you're basically making a dome around the object so that the photogrammetry software has as many angles of all the surfaces as possible. And if there's some areas that have some specific detail that you want to include, then you should take pictures of those as well. So you see I zoom in on this head here because I want to get more information on the head. And some other things to note is that this won't really work if the object is really reflective, or like a metal trophy or something like that, or definitely not glass, because photogrammetry only captures color and geometry data, not like material or roughness or reflectiveness or anything like that. It might be something that it does in the future, but it struggles with reflective surfaces because it doesn't really know where the surface is because it changes based on how you look at it. And you can see that this wood is a little reflective, but it's still good enough. I've worked with a metal plaque before, and that was just fine. So just to see, this is the metal plaque if it loads. Yeah, so the gold on this was metal, but it turned out fine anyway. And yeah, you just want to make sure you have 100, 200 photos and it's reflective. So the software that you use depends, because the one that I use is only on Mac OS. So that's what I recommend. I know that if you have a Windows computer, and you don't have a Mac, you might not be able to use this, so you'd have to look for a different software. I don't know that much about that. I've heard that Meshroom is good. Colmap also might be good if you want to look at those. But what I use for all of my scans is 3D Scanner app for Mac OS. And then this is Meshroom. I'll be linking these in the description as well, by the way. This is probably a good one for Windows, but you'd have to tinker with it. The 3D Scanner app for Mac is pretty simple. You can see I have a bunch of models in here that I've done. But you just take a folder of images and you drag it in here on the left, and then you select Medium OBJ. You turn off USDZ because you don't need any of those. USDZ is like Apple's augmented reality file format. And then I turn on object masking. What that basically does is cut out the object from the surrounding, so it'll like not include the table in the photogrammetry. If you are having trouble with getting good results with your scan, you should turn this off and test to see if that works. Feature sensitivity I keep on normal, and then if your photos are in order, like you took them like next to each other, you should turn on sequential sample ordering with this box here. And of course, if they're not in order, then just click unordered. And then you just click process scan, let that render out. On my M1 MacBook Air, it takes about 15 minutes or less. Just do it in the background, and then once it's done, you'll have the 3D model viewer, and then you can just download the OBJ format. And that's it. There is some quirks with this software though. If you have, the reason I say you need 100 to 200 photos is because that gives good detail, but if you have more than that, I have 16 gigabytes of RAM. RAM is important for this rendering process as well, and if you have too many photos, it'll overload your RAM on your computer and you'll have to quit it and try again. I've also gotten some weird glitches with trying to queue up and render multiple objects at once. Like, for some reason the objects just kind of got like warped or like duplicated for some reason, so I recommend quitting the 3D Scanner app and then reopening it in between every render, just to make sure that nothing like weird happens. So once you have your 3D model, step 2 is importing them into Blender and processing them with a photogrammetry app. So we're going to do a new model here. So you open your new Blender file, delete the default cube, of course, classic. Go file up here, top right, top left, import. Should be OBJ format if you used the software that I recommended. I'm going to use, I'm going to do this right converse. Right. So here's the object, the imported object. I'm going to click this view up here to see the textures. You can see this looks really good right off the bat. Like, this turned out really well. It looks very realistic. You can see how much detail is in the laces, and it only has a little bit of the table as a part of it. But there's some problems with it. One, if we go into edit mode, there's way too many vertices, because the 3D Scanner app for Mac makes all of its models around 50,000 tries by default, which is, just not performant for video games. You want to get that down to less than 10,000, maybe 4,000, preferably. So we're gonna have to do some stuff to that. And the other problem is that it doesn't, the camera can't see the bottom of this objects because they're on the table, so you have a hole in the middle and also missing textures. The last thing I forgot to mention when you're taking photos is that you want to take nice clear photos of the bottoms of the shoe with even lighting so that you can texture paint them on later. And you want to make sure you have some nice overcast lighting. You don't want super harsh lighting because when you're taking the photos, because it'll the shadows will just show up in the model. Like, you can see the darker half of this shoe shows up here, and that will look a little weird if you have other lighting. So so step 3 is to fill in the holes and sculpt the model, and then repair the geometry to prepare it for lowering the poly count. So we have this hole at the bottom here. I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode. So to close this hole, I'm either going to double click. I'm going to have vertex select mode, double click the edge of it, and you'll see that it selects this whole outside edge, and then you just press F to fill. And yeah, this is a really bad fill job, and it kind of is really weird with the texture as well, but that's okay because we're going to fix the texture after we generate a new texture map for it based on one of the tutorials. So We just needed to fill the texture to fix the geometry, and we'll fix the texture later again. So if you want to learn more about filling holes, you can look at this tutorial made by Olaf 3D Tutorials, Blender tutorial, different ways to fill holes. Again, I'm going to link this in the description. Going back to Blender, and so then another way you can close all the holes in a geometry in a mesh is you can. I'm going to undo this. You can, while you're in edit mode, go up here, select select all by trait, and then click non-manifold, and then that will select all the edge loops that are non-manifold as well, and it looks like it's just the bottom, which it should be. And then we press F again to fill that. So now I have to figure out how to clean up this object, because you see it's not perfect. There is I can clean up this lace a little bit, and I can clean up this little bit of floor that we have as a part of it. So to clean up this lace here, I'm going to go into sculpting mode, and I'm going to scroll in, and then I usually just use this draw brush up here, and if you hold shift while you are painting, it will subtract and like smooth things out. And so that is proven, that is really useful a lot of times when you're trying to like fix how meshes look. And so I clean that right up. You can see that's a lot cleaner into the mesh now. And we have this edge over here. I'm going to subtract that as well, just to hide that a little bit. And then we got to clean up this lace on the table here. So another tool you can use to clean up meshes is by deleting vertices and then filling them again. So if we click tab, edit mode, and then we click this toggle X-ray button up here, we can see the whole shoe, and we can look like vertices, like at vertices behind each other. And then to select this, you can just do this normal drag and select, but another option that could be better if it's like doesn't really line up to the rectangle, you can click select, lasso select, and then set, and then you can drag like a line all the way around to cut stuff. So I have all these selected, I press X and then delete vertices, and then that does kind of mess it up. If we have some loose geometry like this again, we can go into edit mode, select X, delete vertices, and then that should be cleaner. We're going to see what it looks like if we fill this. It might not be pretty, so I'm going to double click the loop, press F to fill. Let's see what it looks like with the texture, and that is actually a lot better. So we're going to go back to, we're going to sculpt this in again, just to clean it up. Sculpt this in, clean up these edges, and then clean this up too. Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to look pretty realistic. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So, I mean, this is just a short demonstration, but you can see that's close enough. So do this, yeah. Alright, so now that we've cleaned up the model, we are going to go on to the next step, which is reducing the poly count and baking the textures. The absolute best way I learned this was through this guy's tutorial. I literally just follow this to the T. It's made by Markham 3D and Blender, how to reduce poly count and bake textures. So one of the easier methods to reduce poly count is just to go into edit mode, press A to select all vertices, and then you just go to mesh, clean up, decimate geometry. and then you have this little box here, you click the arrow to open it, and then we want to turn the ratio down. We drag the ratio down, and you see the more we drag the ratio down, it's at 0.3 right now, we get less and less geometry. And you can see the total number of tries in the bottom right. If you have this statistics tool, it goes down. So we're already down to 18,000. And if we go more, we start to reduce the poly count more. And so this is what it looks like. But I don't really like decimate because you're changing the geometry, but you're not changing the textures. So you see when the poly count gets really low down here, this is still 10,000 tries, which can be too much for an object, especially if you're trying to put it on in VR on the Quest 2. It needs to be optimized. So you can see it kind of messes up the textures because they don't exactly line up with the UV mesh anymore, or the UV map anymore. So you can see they're all lined up here, and then it's still kind of messed up. So I'm going to undo this decimate, but it's good to know that it is an option. But this guy's tutorial is a lot better because there we go. Because it teaches you how to create a new texture that matches the new lower res geometry, and it creates a normal map to add extra detail to your lower res geometry as well, because this doesn't have a normal map by default. So it's very performant and it yields good results. So the only thing that I would change about his tutorial is that sometimes I do like to tinker with, he tells you to just do voxel remesh with a certain voxel size, but sometimes I do like to try quadriflow remesh, just to see like if it yields better results. Sometimes it does. So I'm going to set number of vases to 4,000 and click OK. But in the tutorial he says to duplicate that's non-manifold. That's interesting. He says to duplicate the object, and you should do that. I forgot to do it here. It doesn't have the texture anymore because it's a completely new mesh, but that is non-manifold. I'm just going to fill that, and let's see if his method for, and again, if that's too low resolution for your object, you can increase this to maybe, let's try 5,000. Okay. Okay, I think that looks a lot better. I think this is what I'm gonna keep instead of his voxel remesh. But other than that, every part of his tutorial should be the same. Alright, so go watch this, and then when you're done, you're gonna come back here. Alright, so now that you finished this tutorial, here were my results. This was a little bit messy because of how complex this shape was, but I'm just gonna leave it for the sake of this tutorial. You can still see it added, in the places where it did mess up, it added a lot of detail to a geometry that is this basic, which is pretty good. And it clearly also fixes the issue with the texture on the bottom of the shoe, like I showed you earlier. And the one other thing I would like to mention from his tutorial is that you want to make sure that you save both of these images, because he didn't mention that. So you go into UV editing, image with the star means it's not saved, so then you save, and then actually cancel. I have to save the whole file first, so save the file. I'm gonna go right converse, and now I have somewhere to put the image, so I'm gonna go image, save, and just throw it in here. And then you have to do the same for the diffuse texture as well. Save, and boom. I can put that in a folder later. So here we are. So this is our project that we have going right now. you can see that the problem that we have to solve now is the bottom is messed up. And we can still do a little more sculpting at the end of this if, okay, weird that it does that. Huh. Okay, so the problem with sculpting here is we still have this multi-res modifier. So for sculpting, we're going to want to turn the, yeah, we're going to want to turn the multi-res sculpt down to 0 in this component or property panel. And then if you want to do some tweaks after this whole process, you can do them here. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it the way it is though. Okay, so the next step is texture painting with the stamp and clone tools to fill in the missing textures. So what you're going to want to do is you have to get an image, the image that you took of the bottom of the object. So we have these three right here. But the thing with Blender is that the image has to be square, because that is just what the textures look like in Blender. And if it's not square, it'll just be warped. So what you're going to do is you're going to, on a Windows computer, you can edit the image and then crop it, or free square, and then we have this, and the shoe doesn't quite fit, so we're going to rotate it as well. Like this, and then we're going to zoom out. We can't zoom out. So we're going to have to do this in 2 different textures, but that's alright. So we're going to save a copy. Right converse underside photos. Save. And then we're going to need one of the bottom part of the shoe as well. So we're going to crop this. And then, yeah, just do this bottom part. But you see, it's like a constant problem solving thing. Oh. To save. So Blender's just constant problem solving. Something doesn't work, you have to improvise. So the tutorial I learned how to do this from is this one, or these two. We have by the same guy, Markham 3D, how to texture projection painting in Blender. And then this one I found a little more helpful, Ryan King Art, texture paint with images, stencil brush. So if you want to learn more about these, you can watch those videos, but I'm going to teach you how to do it real quick right here. So we're going to go into the texture paint panel, and we're going to go over here. I don't like to see, yeah, the shading like that, so I'm going to click that. And then we're going to go down here into this texture properties, new, open. We're going to choose the picture that we have. Right converse underside photos. Start with this, open image. And then we're going to use this button, texture, at the top. Change mapping from tiled to stencil. And now we have this image here. So we're going to right click to drag it around. We're going to shift right click to scale up and down. And we're going to control right click to rotate. And so you want to get this lined up with your object. Trying to line up the perspective and like the angle and everything can definitely help. And then you're basically just gonna paint the whole picture on the bottom. So we want this to be slightly bigger to kind of fill in the gaps. And then you press F to increase your brush size, and then you can just paint it on. Pretty seamless and awesome. Now you can see that I did this on purpose. You kind of mess up the sides of it because the side was a part of the perspective. So we're going to use this cool feature in Blender where we're going to go into edit mode and we're going to turn on X-ray mode, which is, we have to scroll right here, turn that on, and then we're going to select all of the hold on, I'm going to rotate this a little bit. We're going to select all of the geometry that is above the bottom of the shoe. I can actually use the lasso select for this again, because the shoe isn't perfectly level. And then we're going to click H to hide it. So now we perfectly have selected just the bottom of the shoe. And then we're going to press A to select all, press Tab to exit edit mode, and then we want to click this button up here, Paint Mask. And so now we only have the bottom of the shoe to modify. So the texture won't be like accidentally influencing any other part of the shoe. And we have accidentally missed a little bit of the model up here, but that's okay. You can change that on your side. So again, we want to kind of get this to line up, just like that. I'm going to rotate it a little bit and paint it on. Alright, and now we have to paint on the bottom, so I'm going to click X here, open, and then choose this photo. Instead, I'm going to rotate it around, move it down here, and then paint this. Why didn't that work? Oh, do we have a UV problem? I think we do. So sometimes you can have a normal problem. So we're going to go into edit, layout, press tab, Control H to unhide everything. Oh wait, no. Alt H, and then press A, and then we want to click on Mesh, Normals, and then recalculate outside. And that should fix some problems we were having with painting. So now we're going to have to go back into texture painting, and then turn this off, and then paint on the bottom. It's good that I'm doing this myself. Yeah, perfectly fixed it. Look at that. Looks great now. Okay, we don't want that to show up. Again, it would be better if you can it would be better to like just select the bottom of the shoe. And so once we've texture painted on the missing parts of the model, and this does look a little janky, but I can show you some better results I made. We want to get rid of this texture brush by deleting that picture. Click on texture up here. We don't actually have to do that, so we're going to click clone. So now we're going to use the clone brush. The last step before we export is we're going to use the clone brush to fill in these jagged edges in between the bottom of the shoe and the edge. So we're going to click Control left click to choose the point that we want to paint from, and then it will basically use that as like the clone tool in like Photoshop. And this is really helpful because you can't really get these textures from anywhere else. So we just want to paint along anywhere. It's a lot of trial and error to get it looking how you want to. There we go. But just to your taste, you're gonna move this in and out. So I can go here, click on that, fill that in nicely. A little too big. Make mistakes, you keep going. And yeah, that fills in. See if I can fill in this. I can. And you're going to want to do this to go all the way around the model. And fill in like problems that it has. And on the underside of the shoe, we can click this, fill in this part. The goal is to make it as seamless as possible. And it's not going to be perfect, but yeah, this we clearly want to paint here. And it'll basically draw from the edge of the reference point, but every time you release your button, it'll reset the position. So if you don't want to deviate too far away from the center of the reference point, that can be useful. And again, you should spend more time on this than I'm spending, just to make it look nicer. So we're getting pretty close to finishing now. Once you're done with that, you want to save your texture again, and we have our finished model here. The final step is to export it into Unity. So to do that, there are some settings that you want to make sure you change, just to make sure that it goes into Unity well. So we're going to click File. Oh, first of all, we want to select the model. Then we go File, Export, FBX, because Unity likes FBX models the best. And then what I found works is you click Path Mode here, click Copy, and then you press this button for Embed Textures, because we're going to have to like extract the textures when we get into Unity. And then we limit to selected objects, so we just have this object and we don't have the camera or lights or anything else. And then the rest of the default settings should be good, and we just click Export FBX. So now to import this into Unity, I'm going to have to open up my project here. We're going to have to do a couple settings to get the texture and the normal map out properly. Okay, so we have a sample project open here. So to import this object, oh yeah, here's a couple other objects I changed, or I made myself. This was one of the first I made. You can see there's some weird like geometry artifacts there, but there's some really nice normal map data in here with the like depth of the bear, and I painted the bottom of this bookend on here as well. Definitely looks cleaner. I didn't know how to do cloning when I made this, so I could have made this line a lot cleaner. And then this is a football, a signed football, and this one required a lot of sculpting because I had it propped up on like another object, and that kind of messed up the shape of it, and then I had to paint on. This was kind of difficult. You can see some lighting problems here, but other than that, I'm pretty proud of this model. And you can see what the wireframe of these look like here, about 3,000, 4,000, and they're pretty neat for the shapes that they are. So to import, we're just going to take the model we made, navigate to it. We have writeconverse.fbx. We're going to drag it into the Unity editor, which is right here, and then drag it into whatever folder you have. So I'm going to go just artifacts. Okay, and so we have this object here. Now if you see, if we try to drag this into the world, we don't have the texture. So we want to fix that. So I'm going to go Control Z and click on the object in our inspector over here. We're going to navigate to this Materials tab, and then these two crucial textures or buttons here, we're going to click Extract Textures. We're going to make a Textures folder just to organize it and put that in there. And then once that's done, Extract Materials, and then I'll just put it in the same folder, but you could make a different folder if you want. And finally, we have our finished textured model. And yeah, little jank, but I know you can make better models from this method, and you can have high quality photogrammetry of anything you want for free. The last thing I'm gonna do is quickly show you a couple other models I made. This ashtray is pretty good. This is another model, just to show you some examples of things you can do. This one I did clone paint, so you can see the line around the bottom and the edge here is pretty clean, except for this color. But yeah. And this second football I think turned out really well as well, because it has some complex geometry. But I had to texture paint this back on here. And I had to fix this geometry because there was some warp geometry. I had to cut that off and fill that, and then I had to paint on the bottom. And yeah, if we can see wireframe in here, I don't know if we can. There's wireframe. So here's what this looks like. I had to really, I used voxel remesh on this. No, I used quadriflow remesh, and I had to really like choose just the right mesh size because of these like inset sides here. So if you have problems, you gotta get it like just like thin enough to still like be able to process the detail in the model. But yeah, that's basically it. I know this was a longer tutorial, but thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments to help other people who are trying to learn how to do photogrammetry, again, please leave them in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching.